What's going on, y'all? This is John with Facemask Fantasy, and news just dropped that Sammy Watkins is now a Green Bay Packer. And I rolled my eyes a little bit when I saw this alert because as a longtime Bills fan, I've been burned by Sammy Watkins since 2014. I was all in on him year one in fantasy. I saw the promise when he finished wide receiver 15 in his rookie season. He showed the insane upside that got him drafted number 4 overall in 2014, and he showed it again a year later in 2015 when he finished wide receiver 16 a year later. And I thought we had a perennial borderline wide receiver 1 on our hands. And then in 2016, he started slow, mainly due to poor QB play, having to catch passes from Tyrod Taylor in a run-first offense. And then Sammy Watkins suffered a Jones fracture. And that's not normally a career-altering injury, but it is when your head coach makes you play on the Jones fracture in meaningless games to finish out the season. And that's exactly what the Bills head coach at the time, Rex Ryan, forced him to do. And I'm convinced it ruined Sammy Watkins physically moving forward. And that selfish act by Rex Ryan created the perennial disappointment that Sammy Watkins has been ever since. Now, hindsight is 20/20 here. This apathy to Sammy Watkins' signings is learned behavior, because I've been in on him every time he signed to a new team since he left the team that he was drafted to in 2016, and he's disappointed me at every turn. I was in on him when he went to the Rams when Jared Goff was thought of as one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. He caught 39 balls on 70 targets and achieved a 593-yard season with 8 touchdowns. Now, those 8 touchdowns buoyed his fantasy value and led to him being a wide receiver 3 in standard leagues, as he was the wide receiver 32 in standard, but only the wide receiver 41 in PPR leagues, and that's a far cry from the fantasy ceiling he teased in his first 2 seasons. And then he went to the Chiefs to play with Pat Mahomes, and every year he hung around on the Chiefs, he was a dark horse fantasy wide receiver, and every year he disappointed. Sure, he showed flashes, but that's what Sammy Watkins does. He shows flashes and then disappears. In 2018, he started off hot with 9 catches on 11 targets for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. And everyone thought that it was on and Sammy Watkins had returned to form, but that was not the case, as he only managed 519 yards on 55 targets and scored 3 times on the season. That 3-touchdown game was the only game in which he scored that year. In 2019, he had 673 yards on 90 targets, and again, only scored 3 times. And in every year since his 2019 season, his touchdown totals have declined. In 2020, he started off hot again, 7 catches on 9 targets for 82 yards and a touchdown, and then he disappeared. And then he suffered an injury, something that seemingly happens to Sammy Watkins every year as well. He has missed 2+ career games in every season since 2016. And in 2021, he was cut by the Chiefs and signed by the Ravens, and again, started off relatively hot. He got a ton of work early in the year, 8 targets in his first game, and 7 targets in each of the next 3 games. But he scored no TDs across that span and failed to reach more than 68 yards in each of the 3 games after the first game in which he had 96 yards. Then the wheels fell off a game later in week 5, where he again got injured, and then never got his feet underneath him again. And he finished with a career low 394 yards and only 1 touchdown, both career low numbers. And this was with Lamar Jackson passing for more than he ever had last year, and Bateman, the rookie that they drafted in 2021, not playing for the first 6 games. And now we find him on the Green Bay Packers, headlining, and I say that loosely, but headlining a group including Allen Lazard, who has 1 career full regular season as an injury risk himself, Randall Cobb, who is a best friend of Aaron Rodgers's, but has missed 3.8 games every season since 2016, and is not anything close to a fantasy difference maker when on the field. And Amari Rodgers is there, the unathletic second-year wide receiver who has only 5 career touches to his name. So what are we doing with this pass-catching group? Are we finally going to see Sammy Watkins unleashed? Is this the year that he turns it around at age 29? The short answer is no. I'd much rather invest in Allen Lazard, who at least has built-in rapport with Aaron Rodgers. He knows the playbook and is somewhat less of an injury risk than Sammy Watkins at this point. And while Allen Lazard should come cheap, this Watkins signing has most likely opened up the buying window for Lazard even more, as Lazard now has perceived target competition in this offense. But Lazard is in his age apex season. Age 27 for wide receivers is typically when they reach their zenith from a production standpoint, and Lazard scored 8 touchdowns last year. Watkins hasn't had more than 3 touchdowns in the season since 2017, despite playing with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Now, compounding this is the fact that the Packers have been linked to pretty much every top wide receiver prospect in this draft, from Garrett Wilson to Treylon Burks to Chris Olave to Jamison Williams, even London and Pickens. Once the draft happens, I'm going to be putting out offers for Allen Lazard. I'm not going to be putting out any offers for Sammy Watkins in any dynasty leagues that I'm in. And I'm waiting until after the draft because that's when Lazard's value should be at its lowest. I'm also way in on Robert Tonyan, as he is just a year removed from a tight end 3 overall finish. I'm not in on Watkins. Every year he's tantalizing, but he ends up basically being a nothing from a fantasy standpoint. He will almost certainly have a decent week 1, and then he will taper off, and then he will get injured and open the door for the rookie to come in and come into his own. And then when Sammy Watkins comes back from the injury, he'll be fighting for scraps with Randall Cobb and Amari Rodgers as the 4th or 5th target in this offense, as I believe Watkins will be operating behind Tunyon, behind the rookie wide receiver that they draft, behind Lazard and Aaron Jones, and possibly even A.J. Dillon, who showed last year that he was a very capable pass catcher in his own right as the team's RB2 coming into the year. So long story short, don't pay attention to this news. Leave Sammy Watkins alone. If you have him on your dynasty teams, I would get rid of him before the NFL draft, before the value jump that he will most likely see after the signing news takes a hit due to the Green Bay Packers drafting a rookie wide receiver. But what do you guys think about Sammy Watkins joining the Packers? Put your thoughts in the comments section below, or better yet, tune into one of our weekly live streams. We have a live stream every Tuesday and every Thursday at 6 p.m. EST. So come in, throw your question about Sammy Watkins or any other fantasy relevant situation into the chat, and we can talk about it in real time. But my name is John, and this is Facemask Fantasy. Thank you for listening.